why it's really important to have a plan and understand what your goals are.
In fact, my camel out there is suffering right now with a broken back.
So I actually found Pepe when it was only a couple of hours old, and I'm like, oh, this is a funny meme.
Oh my god.
Yo! Who is this degen?
The old man is swing trading over years at a time. And it's like, that's where the real money is made.
The answer is a permanent loss. With single-sided staking, you don't have to worry about impermanent loss.
When really, at the end of the day, it's just the matter of a macro market. It's just what happens.
If you're aware, if you're disciplined, you can hone that into further financial growth.
Financial freedom, so we can actually live life and not have to be constantly living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, more or less, right?
Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and gentlemen of all ages. Welcome back. Happy Friday. We are back with another book club here on the Degen Roundtable. Today, we're going to be talking about a book called The Price of Inequality by Joseph Sitglitz. So, if you have not been paying attention, here's your primer. For the next series of books that I will be hosting, me, Zenith, the Degen Roundtable, we are covering what I'm calling my Devil's Advocate arc, which is that we are specifically choosing books that we know we're probably not going to fundamentally agree with. But the whole point is that we are here to understand the arguments of the other side of the aisle, steelman them, to give them the best use case possible, and then after that, we will form our own structured arguments against them about the points we like, don't like, and everything in between. So, with that being said, hello. Again, I'm your host, Zenith, and I'm joined by an excellent compatriot of mine, Mr. Will Stevenson, who is mobile, I see. How you doing, man?
I am mobile. I just pulled into the Walmart parking lot of Auburn, Indiana. The parking lot. I'm a little bit I'm a little bit kerfuffled right now. I'm in Indiana of all places, so I suppose I am a temporary Hoosier. So I got to figure out what I'm doing with that. But I just got done hanging out with a tower climbing buddy of mine who lives nearby, and then like I'm on my way to go visit some pre-military friends who are about to go ship off to boot camp in the next month. So that's kind of fun. It's gonna be an interesting one. But I'm doing great. For the folks at home who don't know who I am, hello. My name is Will Stevenson. I'm a traveling tower worker that I roam around the States and talk shit about crypto and stuff. And Zenith didn't introduce himself, so I'll tell you guys, Zenith is the Degen Roundtable's legal and crypto and government analyst that we have on hand over here. So that's what I'm doing. That's what he's doing. We're having a good time. We're feeling great. We're enjoying this book, which is arguably I had some opinions on it yesterday. I was talking to Zenith in a private Telegram space. Shout out to Walk the Block. I was talking to Zenith in that little Telegram space you guys had going on, and I was just basically talking shit about this book. I was like, man, this fucking author, he sounds like he's a whiny little bitch. You know, he's just wah, things are unfair, things are unequal, and I got to walk it back a little bit. I got to take it back. He did talk a lot about unfairness and inequality, and he brought up a lot of great points as well, though, while he was talking about like how fucked the system is. And I think that there's some commonality between his side of the aisle, which is more of the, I would say, the leftist side of the aisle, and my side of the aisle, which is more like a little bit right, but mostly like anarcho-libertarian. And I think that we can draw commonality and consensus around the fact that the world, the market, the government does not work the way that it ought to work. And it is due to there being a whole bunch of people at the top that are just like taking control and fucking over everybody and doing all sorts of crazy shit. Now, the solution for which I think I disagree with him a little bit on, but he does in this book, he does a really good job of analyzing a lot of the problems that are happening within Western culture compared to other cultures and things. So those are my quick little thoughts on the book. Yeah.
Excellent. I think that when I was going through the book, I was kind of listening to the tone and the arguments and the kind of arguments that the author was making, and I was imagining like slightly leftist center, boomer, like early mid 2000s. And then I was doing research for the show, and I was like, oh, the book was published in 2012. I was like, this makes sense. like, okay, yeah, this tone definitely fits that. But
Yeah, he was
nevertheless,
talking about Mitt Romney in the in the book at some point. It's like, oh yeah, and that Mitt Romney guy. I was like, Mitt Romney. When was Mitt Romney? Mitt Romney was when I was like a young lad in the fucking Marine Corps. That was my first like election cycle ever. So continue though. It was published in 2012. You were saying?
Yeah, it was published in 2012, but obviously we are here in the year of our Lord 2025. So obviously the climate and the culture has, I would argue, drastically changed since the time of this writing. So I'm sure the author has continued to update certain parts, but I don't believe I got the updates. So we're just kind of looking at the 2012 argument here. I think the arguments in and of themselves definitely represent a political kind of like, I don't know, I'm going to call it full on ideology, but kind of like a platform of like probably the Democratic Party, like the mainstream Democratic Party of like the 2008, 2010, 2012 era. That
which would
sense.
now be considered Republican. It's kind of how the Overton window shifts.
It is. It's interesting because he kind of talks about the populist angle a little bit towards the end, where he kind of the whole point of the book, I guess, before we get into the whole summary and everything, is that largely the book is shaped around are the 1% and the 99% diametrically opposed, not just with beliefs, but their positioning and then how they interact with the world. And this book, I think he definitely kind of like makes the argument for the populism ideology, which is like the 99 is going to have to be represented. Otherwise, there could be consequences later on. And I'm curious to talk about that consequences part when we get to that section, because I think he has an interesting writing style when it comes to it. But yeah.
Well, yeah, it was definitely an interesting read. I will say that, like, I got kind of heated in the beginning of the book, and like, shame on me for letting my emotions take control and just be like, oh, fuck this little whiny bitch. But like at the same sense, he is speaking about something that is pretty important to most people, which is that most people feel like they're getting fucked over, which is pretty accurate. Like, we find ourselves in the cryptocurrency space, presumably, because we feel like we're getting fucked over. There's not a whole lot of like 1%ers, I think, that are in the cryptocurrency space for the same reason as the 99%ers that are in the cryptocurrency space. So those are just my little tepid thoughts and feelings. But there's a part of the show that we're almost forgetting to do, Mr. Zenith. For the folks at home who don't know, it's time for chat motherfucking shoutouts. The best part of the show where we talk to you. So Z, why don't you go ahead and take it away, broski?
Will do. All right, getting in here first, we have NU2 New 2 God Plankton. He says first. Well done.
Hell
sir.
yeah.
You even beat out some of our old timers today. Well done. Way to get
Bro, New to God Plankton, he was on Whiskey Wednesday.
Oh,
with us,
nice.
with me and Josh. Yeah, me and Mr. Slide 180 were rocking and rolling. Man, it was crazy Whiskey Wednesday. It was a good one, bro. It was good. If you haven't watched it,
that I missed that one because I
would
literally
recommend watching it.
I got home 15 minutes after you guys went live. Bit of a late
Dude,
work day.
It was good. It was a good one. Man, check the replay, gang. But Mr. Josh is going to be joining us next Whiskey Wednesday. Which I think we had. Are we gonna do a Warhammer stream next Whiskey Wednesday? Can we do that?
I'll have to check my schedule to make sure I'm available.
Okay.
But yeah, we can plan on it.
Well, I've already got a thumbnail ready for next Whiskey Wednesday. Yeah, dude, Josh is the fucking best. So shout out to Josh if you're here. But he sent me some thumbnail like things of him and I hanging out together, like literally drinking beers and shit. I'm drinking his mead, by the way. We were showing off the mead that he made on Whiskey Wednesday, which is what I am drinking right now. It's a good time.
Very cool.
But yeah, bro, like new to God Plankton, he hopped in and we were talking about guns, we were talking about alcohol, we were talking about like I think homesteading a little bit. There was all sorts of cool shit going on that Whiskey Wednesday, man. It was a good one.
Nice.
So, good to see you, new to God Plankton.
I dig it. Alrighty, up next, a fan favorite and just a favorite of ours in general. Tam Tam, she says, "Hello, my lovelies. Great to see you as well. Happy Friday to you." And by the way, folks, Tuesdays, check out the X space that she runs. Gosh, what is her Twitter handle?
It is, I think it's Tam Tam Crypto. I think she changed it. It used to be JoJo Crypto. But anyways, if you Google Tam Tam, You'll probably find her because she's like the most prolific tweeter in Hexico. Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Tam Hex.
Is it?
That is.
It is Tam Hex. Okay, not Tam Crypto.
Yes, it is. Oh gosh, what's the actual name of the page that she runs? Tam, if you're out there, go ahead and plug your stuff in the chat, please.
Of the page? Oh, she just does it from.
Is it Polstein University?
Oh, I don't know if they have a special. I don't think there's a special Twitter for it, but that is the idea. It's Richard Hart University. So
Gotcha.
that happens
Right.
every Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Central Time. So that would be 7 to 9 Eastern if you guys are on Eastern Time. But yeah, it was good. I was able to hop in there this last one, and it was a good time. Lots of people with lots of thoughts on things.
Love to hear it. Alrighty, Let's keep it
Good
rolling.
to see you, Tam.
Moondog coming in here with the emojis. I believe it's love and light, or it could just be Moondog going up into the right. I like that one too.
It might be, yeah, it might be Moondog up to the right. I can't really see very well on my phone. Actually, I could make my phone full screen. I don't know why I don't do this more often. Wait, I cannot make my phone full screen. That's
anyways. Moondog is also hitting us with, tell him shark attacks are back. Don't believe the pansy nonsense the recruiter told him, as a rule.
That's right. Bro, we were talking to Moondog. I was talking to Moondog about this in the DJ Roundtable comments. I had no idea that shark attacks ever left. I had to Google what shark attacks were. Shark attacks, for those of you that don't know at home, is when like you see it's the ubiquitous is not the word. It's when you see the like all the drill instructors like run in on one person and they're like, and they're just like yelling and screaming at him, and the recruit is just like, I don't know what's going on. And that's the whole point, is it's supposed to reset your baseline and be like, oh my God, I'm in blah-de-da-de-da. And eventually throughout the course of boot camp, the idea of the shark attacks is they keep doing it until it doesn't phase you anymore. So it's kind of like a, hey, fucking steel yourself up, motherfucker. You know, life's going to be tough. Battle's going to be difficult. There's going to be bullets flying and grenades blowing off, and you need to not like freeze up like a little civilian when shit goes crazy. So yeah, I'm not going to tell him that sharker attacks are back. He's just going to have to go figure it out for himself. Eric, if you're watching right now, which I very much doubt that you are, I don't even know if you know that I do podcasts, but Eric, if you're watching, best of luck to you, broski. I'm not giving you any tricks or pointers to help you skate through boot camp. You have to earn your way through it. So there you go, dude. Fucking shark attacks are back.
Well said.
Don't believe whatever pansy. Oh yeah, you already read that.
Tell you what, do you mind grabbing this one? I got to get a fresh reload.
Yeah. All right, so next we got Moondog. Ideas and cultures evolve for sure. Mortimer Addier put together a series of great books that he referred to many times during his career as The Great Conversation, aka Ongoing Evolutions. I'm not sure who Mortimer Adler is, but it sounds like he's got some good stuff going on. So hopefully someone somewhere knows what Mortimer Adler is, other than me. But The Great Conversation, Zenith, is something that Mortimer has been working on.
Ooh,
Ongoing Evolutions.
Alrighty, up next we got Hexkin Lost in Asia with the happy emoji shouting out. Good to see you, brother. Thanks for showing up.
Aloha.
Different time zones, but he still makes a show. What a guy.
Yep. What a fucking G.
We got another fan favorite over here, Centurion54X, aka 54 Cent. He says, "What's up, D-Gens?"
Good to see you, bro.
Good to see you, brother. Wait, RHU, so I can tell my parents I did go to college? There you go.
You went to Twitter college, bro. College is such a joke nowadays. Like, if you do what everyone else does, you're going to get what everyone else has got. And right now, everyone's going to college. So congratulations. If you went to college, you did the thing that everyone else does. And so you've got what everyone else has got, which is mostly a whole lot of nothing. So I am speaking in generalities here. There's a lot of good things that come out of college, right? If you go into STEM, if you go become a doctor, if you go become someone that does something that's really, really important, then like I could see it. But you know, if I use my GI Bill, I'm definitely going to get an underwater basket weaving degree from Arizona University, because they do have that as an option. So that's something to think about. Also, Zenith, are you frozen right now? Okay, no, you're moving. All right, sweet. I see you. It looked like you were frozen there for a second. But yeah, I know that you went to college because you, sir, were an officer. You had a little shiny gold bar on your collar, or I don't know, what do they wear in the Coast Guard? You guys wear coveralls in the Coast Guard?
As an engineer, I wore coveralls, and they were banging. Let me tell you.
Excellent. That's good.
Although that
That's
was
good.
only
I
for
respect it.
only for underway. And if you had to go up to the bridge, you had to go put on the ODU blouse, and you had to do the whole shit.
Wait, what?
Like, all right.
If you go up to the bridge of the ship, you got to put on the fucking camis and shit.
No coveralls on the bridge.
Wow. The captain of my ship, the USS Wasp, by the way, much bigger and cooler and better than the little whatever.
My 210.
Yeah, your little 210 fucking fishing boat you had over there with your what 22 caliber machine guns on the front or something. Our
we had a
864 foot aircraft carrier. Our captain, damn it, he wore coveralls everywhere he went on that ship. So he was a really cool guy. Shout out to I don't remember his name. Captain Smith, I think it was Captain Smith. Hopefully. But Skipper is what we called him. Damn, that sucks, bro. You had to change uniform just to go up on the bridge. That's fucking lame. I only ever went to the bridge once, but I was enlisted, so it doesn't happen a lot.
Well, as part of my job, they were like, cool, you have to go get qualified as an engineer. All right, cool. Now you also have, because you're an engineering officer, you also have to go get qualified to drive the ship on the bridge. So
that's cool.
For all the deck watch people, they were like, oh, I just have to get qualified up here. Oh, sweet. I'll get this done in like 9 months, 1 year, and just bim, bam, boom, easy peasy. It's like, cool. I did my 9 months to a year down in the engine room. Now I have to go do it all over again up top. Whatever. It's cool. It's not everybody gets to say they actually get to drive the ship, and it's pretty cool.
That's pretty fucking sweet, bro. The only time that I went up to the bridge was in the mornings during the Reveille, the Reveille call. They would invite people. Well, so not everyone got this privilege and opportunity. I only know this because I was friends with some of the bosuns, and they would play music in the morning during Reveille. And so I went up there and I asked them to play or I was talking to the guys and they're like, hey, just bring whatever music device you have up to the bridge. And because we were on the fucking LHD, man, I think our bridge was like 7 decks up from the flight deck or from the main deck. And so it's like, you've got the flight deck, then you've got like 5 decks down, you get to the main deck, and then you've got like 7 decks down from that, and you're in the fucking bilge. And then like from the flight deck, you got to go another 7 decks up to get up to like the bridge area. It was like fucking crazy. I'd never been up in the superstructure, other than the superstructure, guys, for those of you that don't know, is the part of the ship that like sticks up above the ship. It's like it looks like an island or a building or something like that, but it was freaking cool. But I went up there with my little laptop, Sergeant Stevenson, walking up the stairs with his little fucking $200 Google Chrome fucking thing. And I played Zombie by Tool to wake up the folks in the morning. So it was a good time. Shout out to everybody on the USS Wasp out there. All those of you degenerates that had the privilege of sailing and almost sinking with me. So there we go.
There you go. And by the way, to finish up the comment here, if you go back and you watch when we covered Adam Smith, Wealth of Nations, and the Thomas Sowell Basic Economics, you have a associate DGen degree from DGen-U in macroeconomics, and Will might be willing to write you a nice certificate in crayon. And if we find you, we'll send it to you or give it to you.
I will do it. I will legit. Hey, for those of you, if you watch that show, if you can send me a screenshot or of you like putting in a comment, or just tell me you did it, I will write you up a crayon, a Crayola crayon certificate of you have graduated Degen Roundtable University, and you'll have one of the couple copies that are available. Hit me up on Telegram at t.me/willstevenson, or scan that QR code way up there and hop in the Degen Roundtable Telegram, and you guys can reach out to me that way. So yeah. Send me a message and I'll send you a graduating certificate of Degen University.
There you go. Alrighty, we got 2 more. Mr. Funkmaster Hex coming in here and saying, ladies and gentlemen, good evening with the cheers. Cheers to you, sir. Glad to have you with us as always. Love your support, man. We really appreciate you. And here we go for the shark attacks. If you have a modicum of stoicism, and fitness helps too, shark attacks are fun.
Yep, it can be fun because you get to see like what grown-ass men do to other grown-ass men. You're like, why are you yelling, bro? Like, I'm just here. I'm just chilling. I'm just doing exactly what you tell me to. So you can keep yelling and lose your throat, and then you gotta talk like a drill instructor, talk like this all the time, because they all lose their voices, and so they can't talk like normal human beings.
Alrighty.
Oh, boy.
With that being said, let's get into this, good sir. Alrighty, folks, welcome to the start of the arc here. Let's start off with who is the author. So, Joseph Stiglitz, an American economist, professor, and a public intellectual best known for his work on information asymmetry, inequality, and global economic governance. He earned his PhD in economics from MIT. Ooh. Economics degree from an engineering university? Whatever. Still reputable. And he went on to teach at the prestigious institutions such as Yale, Princeton, Stanford, Oxford, Columbia University, where he is currently a university professor. Mr. Stiglitz rose to prominence, Dr. Stiglitz rose to prominence in the 1970s and 80s through his groundbreaking research on how imperfect information shaped markets, showing that the real-world economies rarely match the ideal perfect competition. This work earned him the Nobel Memorial Prize in Economic Sciences in 2001, shared with George Akerlof and Michael Spence. Beyond academia, Stiglitz has held major policy roles, including serving as the chief economist of the World Bank from 1997 to 2000, and as the chair of President Bill Clinton's Council of Economic Advisors, that's a title, from 1995 to 1997. He became widely known for his critiques of globalization, free market fundamentalism, and policies that favor elites at the expense of broader prosperity. His books include Globalization and Its Discontents, Making Globalization Work, and this one, The Price of Inequality. Combine rigorous economic analysis with sharp political critique aimed at showing how economic systems can be restructured to serve the many rather than the few. Today, he remains as one of the most influential voices on inequality, climate economics, and reforming international financial institutions. All right. So, when we were talking
Climate
earlier...
economics.
Look, we have thoughts on that one. We'll save it for the latter half of the show, if we will. But, I mean, to our points, we said that this guy kind of sounds like generic, middle-of-the-road, Democratic economy guy from 2000s. Yeah, well, the bio says as much.
Yep, that's about right.
Alrighty, with that being said, let's get into the summary of the book. We're going to go chapter by chapter talking about each of the ideas, and then after that, we're going to get into our discussion. We're going to get into what the author proposes as his solutions to what he defines as the problem. Then after that, we will give our retorts or rebuts and really step into the ring with this man. I mean, he's a Nobel Prize winner, so who are we guys? But as Will says, just two assholes on the internet.
Yeah. I've got whenever you're done with your thesis, I want to share like one of my primary thoughts on the book, but go ahead.
Alrighty, let's get into it. So the book is broken down into five parts. Part 1 is the America's 1% problem. Talks about the concept of the 1% versus 99%, showing how income and wealth have become concentrated at the top. He argues that it's not accidental, but is actually a product of the policies, deregulation, and what he calls rent seeking by the 1%. He goes on to explain that rent seeking is where powerful groups use political influence to shape rules, regulations, and markets for their own benefit rather than through productive activity. He shows how monopolies, bailouts, and tax loopholes entrench this even further. Part 2, why it matters. Markets and inequality. He challenges the myth that free markets naturally produce fair outcomes. Markets are shaped by power, and without proper regulation, they favor insiders and the entrenched. Distortions in the economy. He says that ineconomies lead to inefficiency inside those economies. When the wealthy capture resources and power, it distorts investment, competition, and undermines long-term growth. He highlights financial speculation versus productive investment. Chapter 5 is a democracy in peril. This is where he starts to get into kind of the democratic elements of societies. He argues that inequality undermines democracy itself. The political system becomes captured by the wealthy, who funds campaigns and lobby for policies that protect their interests, creating these vicious cycles. Part 3 is we have why the system failed us. He criticizes how information and media have been manipulated by elites, shaping public opinion to support policies that harm the majority. He actually compares it to the 1984 book by George Orwell about control is more important than perception. Next up, we have justice for all, how inequality is eroding the rule of law. He explores how inequality translates into unequal access to justice, such as wealthy can afford better legal representation, they can influence the legal frameworks themselves, while the poor face harsher penalties and just don't have the access to the amount that the upper echelon has. Next up, we have a good bit, which is the battle of the budget. He says the U.S. budget process, he argues, has been captured by special interests. Tax cuts for the wealthy, regressive taxation, and austerity harm the majority while protecting the elite wealth. Again, keep in mind this book was published in 2012. I can only imagine how he feels about public debt ever since then. Part 4, the social and economic cost of inequality. Macroeconomic policy and the central bank by and for the 1%. We might be familiar with these arguments here. He critiques the Federal Reserve for prioritizing Wall Street over Main Street, saying that bailouts, quantitative easing, and monetary policy disproportionately benefited the financial elite while doing little for ordinary workers. Says it doesn't make sense why they grouped it this way, but pretty much the last part of the book is a democracy in decline. But more importantly, this is his roadmap of what he believes are going to be consequences, how to fix it, and what the benefits could be for fixing such. He argues that inequality is not inevitable. Policies around progressive taxation, better regulation, stronger education systems, and fairer financial practices can reduce inequality while promoting growth. He lays out reforms such as campaign finance reform, breaking up monopolies, restructuring the tax system, and investing in public goods. He insists that inequality is a political choice, not an economic destiny. The last one, we have the 99%. The conclusion of the book stresses that the interests of the 99% and even the long-term interests of that 1% actually do align with reducing that inequality. An unstable, unjust society ultimately threatens everybody, including the rich. He calls for collective action to restoring fairness, efficiency, and democracy. There you go. That's the quick summary of the book. Will, what was the thought that you had?
So the thought that I had is that he uses a very particular word dozens and dozens of times within the book, and that word is fair. And I just want to say that the word fair is a negotiating technique. For those of you guys that have read Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, I don't know if we covered that on book club before. Do we cover Never Split the Difference?
I want to say it's on the short. I want to say it's on the short list, but we've never covered it.
Oh fuck! All right, well we better do that. So
actually, we did. Number 67. Never Split the Difference.
Oh fucking A, right. All right. So in Never Split the Difference, one of the things that Chris Voss.
For I guess the quick background, Never Split the Difference was the book that we covered about the FBI hostage negotiator who actually negotiates from a different point. If you remember back to that episode, we compared this book against Way of the Wolf, which is the Wolf of Wall Street book, where he talks about the straight line negotiation strategy. And if I remember properly, one of the main conclusions that we came to is that they're both sales, but they're starting from different points. Correct. Way of the Wolf is starting from the idea that I am here to try to sell you on this thing, and it's up to me to do it.
Yeah.
Never Split the Difference is stating that this is a hostage negotiation, and I'm not going to get half of the hostages or bits and pieces of the hostage because that is a loss. So it is, I'm not going to split the difference. I'm just going to win.
Yep. One of the things that he says, though, that I think is really excellent and just holds up to the test of time every time I think about it is he uses the word fair. And he describes the word fair as within a negotiation with you and your counterpart fair is a negotiation tactic. Fair means what fair really means is I'm not happy with what I'm receiving. I think that I'm getting a bad deal. So in this book, I think I'm getting a bad deal, and it's your responsibility to fix the bad deal that I'm receiving. So that's something that I want to stress when it comes to reading this particular book is Joseph Stiglitz, right? It's Joseph?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so Joseph Stiglitz uses the word fair a whole lot, and then the prescription in the book, as best I can tell, is like, look, this thing is unfair. Somebody else had better fix it, or we had better fix it, and then use somebody else as the enforcement agency to make this thing correct. So like some of the examples that he gives in the book are regulation and government reform and things of that nature. And so this is one of the central tenets of the book that I had that I still take issue with is I don't think that the solution to all of these problems is say, hey, daddy government, please fix this for me and make it better. And I'll incentivize you to do it. I think that the solution to all of these things is you vote with your feet, you vote with your wallet, right? And that is the free market. The free market solution is everybody casts a vote. One of the things that he says also throughout the book repetitively is that like it's not one vote per person, it's one vote per dollar. And so whatever side of the campaign throws more money at their campaign, they're generally the one that wins the election cycle via the creation of propaganda, making more videos, making more movies, doing more tours, blah 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 blah, getting more signs. It's not like franchise when exercised with like ticking a little box on a piece of paper and handing it to a person in a voting booth. It doesn't mean anywhere near as much as, oh, I'm going to donate $400,000 to this political person, and I'm going to also donate $400,000 to this person, and I'm going to also donate $500,000 to this guy, and I'm going to donate 10 grand to that guy, and this, that, the other thing. The person who gets the most donations is generally the one that wins. The person who has the most money is generally speaking the one that wins the election. And I can't remember who had said this, but I remember this somewhere. Is it like if voting had any power whatsoever, they wouldn't let normal people do it. They wouldn't let the common man vote if voting had the ability to affect any sort of actual change. So that's just my cynical route. Let me tie it back to my original thought here with the book. He uses the word fair a lot, and then followed by an appeal to an outside authority to make the changes that he prescribes in the book in order to get to the more fair and equitable return. I agree very strongly with his identifications of all the problems that he has, and he's done a great job of describing all the things that are going wrong. The only thing that like I kind of disagree with is like instead of taking the action as an individual, it's more of like appeal to someone else to make the action for me, and then and then only the world will be a better place. If we can just turn the government into this sort of machine, then everything will be happy and fine. I'm of the more cynical perspective where it's like, hey, if you give the government authority, it will abuse it, it will take that inch and it will stretch it out into a mile, and it will do all sorts of terrible, heinous things. And so my general prescription for all of these things is if you're being treated badly, walk away. If you're in a place that doesn't treat you like a sovereign citizen or respectable, walk away. If you're in a bad job that you're a cattle, you're a number, and the boss disrespects you, walk away. Like the more people that walk away, the more people that act like they're sovereign citizens, the more people that act empowered and don't give their power to a union boss rep, give their power to an electoral seat, give their power to a president, give their power to a political party, the more you will be able to affect your own world. And you'll definitely won't have as much leverage giving yourself power as you would giving a political representative your power, but you can change your world more effectively, your own particular small little world, by picking up your shit and walking away and being a sovereign individual. So that's the only difference that I would say is important in this book, is that like he talks about a lot of the problems and he describes them very well, and he even gives some pretty good solutions, but a lot of it is based on the idea of like what is fair, and under the prescription of what is fair, how does somebody else get what's fair for me, as it instead of how do I draw my own line in the sand and stop people from imposing their will on me. So that's my little monologue. Zenith, am I going crazy here? Am I hitting some nails on the head? What are your thoughts?
No, I don't think you're crazy. I think that that is one of the. I want to try to steel man his argument first before we do the tearing down stuff. But you do make
fair
points, which is that
fair.
he does argue for fairness, and one of the main things that he appeals to in the book is he's appealing to the idea that free market economics, just let loose, laissez-faire style, will not produce this like wonderful prediction. In fact, there are some negative downsides to it, which we've tried to curb in the past through like monopoly busting and collective bargaining agreements when they go well and that kind of stuff. Yeah. He makes those arguments for sure. But
I would actually
Overall-
agree with those points.
Yeah,
I would say that
think
we
most
don't
people
live in a
would.
free market. Yeah, we live in a monopolistic enforced government situation.
Agreed.
The
The thing
government-
is
the-
that
Yeah, continue. Sorry.
the way that he portrays it is that I think he would, if there was a dial, he would turn it up probably about 50% higher than you or I would be willing to go. It's important to note that in the book, he does specifically call out the idea. They're like, look, if you try to get rid of all inequality, you're going to ruin the work incentive. That's one of the things he talks about, which is that if you try to make it so that everyone is perfectly equal, you're going to destroy what pushes people to even work in the first place. That is when he talks about this, which is like, if you try to, he's not a socialist. He straight up says that. And he says that he even takes a big issue with the label of socialism, which is like, when it comes to the communication portion of the book, which we'll hit later on, is that one of the ways that people have tried to fight against sort of these more using the government more is trying to just slap the label of socialism on it. And he just wholeheartedly rejects that. What he's trying to do is socialism. He does admit that there is a degree of redistribution. Namely, he argues that taxation is the way to do that, which is that taxation past a certain threshold is the way to allow that money is not used by the individuals just for like sitting on, but it's actually redistributed through the society. And as a benefit of that, the people that are being taxed will actually receive a benefit pretty equal, if not, he would argue, are greater than what they could have done on their own. But I want to get to one of the major things that the guy talks about in this book, and that's 2008, baby. So the 2008 financial crisis is
he does a great job.
He does a very good job elaborating on this. And he says that this is really a twofold issue. Number one is the banking crisis. And number two is the housing crisis, which arguably kind of caused the banking crisis. But he makes a good point of splitting these into two separate things. So number one, the banking crisis. He argues that the banking crisis was explicitly the elites absolutely abusing the level of control that they have in government and economics to ensure that they were saved and even paid out for the crises that they basically created. What he's talking about here is that instead of doing what was a normal system that a lot of other countries use, which is that if a bank goes under, what happens is that the shareholders are the people that have taken the investment with the understanding of risk. Therefore, this is the downside to the risk. Therefore, they kind of get zeroed out. Bondholders, the people who signed contracts with this bank, now become the new shareholders, meaning they get paid out first and made whole. Additionally, the other group right beside those people are the people that have put into the bank and are what's the word I'm looking for? It's making sure they're deposit insurance holders, meaning that it's the idea that you're insured by the FDIC up to like $250,000 or something, meaning that you are insured, therefore you will be made whole. So the idea is that shareholders, the people that invested in the bank, and the people running the bank, they're the people that lose in this situation because this is a failure. Therefore, it falls on them. And the shareholders are associated because they made a knowledgeable decision to invest in this, knowing the risk that this is the downside risk. Bondholders, people that the company made contracts with, they're good. People that actually used the bank and gave money, those people are also made good. Instead, what happened was the government came in, bailed out the banks, and as a result, the shareholders benefited first, the executives got bonuses, and then everyone else was kind of left holding the bag a little bit, not in the fact that they actually lost money in the transaction, but in the fact that the money that was given to those people was taken out of the U.S. Treasury, basically taxpayer money, meaning that the taxpayer base were the people that ended up paying for this elite group of people that used their exorbitant amount of power and control, or rather influence in the government, to ensure that this thing happened. The argument at the time was, go for it.
What's the thing that we oh man, there's a thing that we say all the time on the DGen Roundtable that I totally just blank spaced. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have cut you off. Continue with your thought.
Good. All right, so that's prong one of the 2008 crisis. This is really kind of one of the main focal points of the book, because he really uses this crisis as a good example of all the ways that the inequality is affecting people in negative ways. Prong number two is the housing crisis. So the housing crisis pretty much was that the loans were given to people, even though by the numbers they should not have been given loans, but the people giving the loans knew that the government was pretty much going to buy these terrible quality loans and then repackage them into the market to be sold to investors. What ended up happening is that we saw a bit of a real estate, just a slight dip. But what that did is it made people underwater, no longer able to make their payments. And instead of actually just claiming that these people are unable to make them payments, they just kind of like hid that information and still continued selling these bad loans to investors, to the market effectively. And that is one of the big things that really caused this. So in this scenario, what the author is really arguing is that this again falls back on the people making the loans. He does acknowledge that, yes, the people that were taking the loans probably shouldn't have taken the loans. But the big point that it really points to is what he believes is not being recognized, which is that the people making loans he argues they have a responsibility to actually understand and communicate to the other party what the true downside of taking this potential loan is. Because they have this asymmetric amount of information and experience, it puts them in an advantageous place where they can pretty much sign these deals with people who they know that if things go wrong, they're going to go very wrong and they're going to end up losing massively. Yep. So there you go. That's the two prongs. We have the banking side. We have the housing loan side. Will, your thoughts? Which of those points like really like make sense to you? What do you think like he nailed on the head?
What I remember my phrase now, and it's like wait till Gary Gensler finds out that most of the fiscal crime is done denominated in US dollars, or what was it? Most of the money laundering stuff is done in US dollars, not in cryptocurrency. That's what this whole thing was. It was just a big giant money laundering scheme of taking money out of taxpayers' value and giving it to people who were doing shitty things in the banking industry. There was one country, Iceland. They jailed the bankers after the subprime mortgage thing that happened in 2008. Iceland was the only country that put the bankers in jail that did the same thing as what happened in the United States. You know what happened in the US? They got paid off. In Iceland, straight to jail, you know? So my thoughts on this whole thing is that it's a system set up by people who are in charge to fund people who are in charge and give people in charge money from people who are not in charge. And you can define in charge however you want to. For me, it's they run the banks, they operate the banks, and they run the government, they operate the government. That's my own personal little 2 cents there. And like there's commonalities between like what types of people are in government, what types of people are in banks. You can draw your own inversions and conclusions from that. But it's essentially just a big giant money laundering scheme of taking money out of working class, middle class, lower class people's hands and putting it into elite top first percentile or the specific types of people's hands. So that's my thoughts on the whole process, on the whole problem there. And it's all just a big giant money laundering scheme when you zoom out and you take a really good look at it. So homie Joseph, he did a good job. Joseph Stiglitz did a good job of drawing those conclusions and having that analysis and things.
For sure. Alrighty, let's move on. Or real quick, we got a great comment from Moondog here. Here's TLDR. The 2008 crisis. A bunch of patsies convinced enough people in charge of grading risk that if you pack enough crap into one place, you can upgrade and upcharge it as fertilizer. Ad infinitum.
We're all going to make so much fucking money. We're just going to be printing money, but where does the money come from? It's printed out of nowhere because idiots sign loans and we can trick them into doing it. So,
agreed.
Yeah.
Alrighty, let's get to, these are going to be kind of some of the arguments that he makes along the book. He really starts off the book by making the analogy, and this is the analogy that I think he really carries through the book, which is that if you imagine the economy as or just like the wealth of the nation effectively as a giant pie, the goal is that more people should be getting a good chunk of that pie. But what he argues is that the way that things have been set up is that the people in the top percentages have been taking more and more of that pie, meaning that the rest of society is collectively getting less of that pie. So ways that he talks about doing this is that if there is concentration of wealth inside the upper echelons, what it does is it allows them to invest at rates that are exorbitantly higher than the rest of the population. And as a result of the current system that we have, don't worry, we'll get to the Federal Reserve. He's got words for those guys. He says that as a result of that, you see asset classes being inflated, something that we're pretty familiar with talking about on this channel. And he also talks about how, due to the fact that they are capital gains instead of like work being done through a W-2 or a 1099, they are taxed at a different rate. And because of that, they're actually being taxed at a rate less than the average person that is working for their money, as opposed to just accruing profits on things. One of the other arguments he says is that the people that are in this position are not getting there on necessarily like their own merit or the work. They're pretty much just riding on the coattails of people that came before them. And he even argues that this is why we see that the level of mobility inside the United States has fallen to a level below many other countries, which is that I think he cites a statistic that in the UK, there's a 20%, it's like 20% of the population will be able to actually achieve that. I'm screwing this up. Pretty much argues that there is more mobility, saying that there's only 20% of the population that is unable to actually achieve high levels of wealth based on their own work over their lifetime. In other countries, it gets a little higher, is like 30%. And I believe he argues that the United States is sitting around 35, 37%. Keep in mind, this is back in 2012. So because of that, he says that, would this necessarily be a problem if people were upwardly mobile? No, because they're not as upwardly mobile. What it means is that once you have established a certain station in life, you can really use that and wield those benefits in ways that the rest of the population is unable to do so, in a way that he argues, to go back to Will's word, is unfair.
Not my word. That's Stiglitz's word. I don't like the word fair.
To keep going with this argument, one of the ways he extrapolates it into the private economy, or the workforce effectively, is showing comparisons of CEO wages compared to workers' wages. And he argues that back in like the 1950s and 60s and elsewhere in the world, it's usually a ratio of somewhere around like 15 to 30. And then in rare cases, it gets as high as 50 to 1 of the amount that the CEOs make compared to the workers. In recent times, that has jacked up exorbitantly to, at the time of writing, I believe the stat is 200 to 1, but in recent days, I'm pretty sure it's actually closer to like 300, even pushing 300 plus. The argument that he makes about this being a bad thing is that if you look at the idea that you are being paid what you're actually producing, it is like unfeasible as a CEO to say that your work is worth 300 times the amount of whatever people at lower levels of the company are producing. He's saying that your work is not 300 more times valuable. Therefore, why are you being paid 300 times as much? And it goes back to the argument that, look, this is more of an entrenchment issue, which is that people have risen to these levels and they give these promotions to people that they like, people that they trust. And then as a result, they can all kind of like give each other more money, just keeping that separation increasing and increasing. One of the examples he gives is that the CEOs are technically responsible for assigning themselves pay, but the people that are responsible for keeping the CEO in check are the board, but the CEO is people that appoints the board. Therefore, he's intrinsically motivated to appoint people to the board that will pay him more money so that he can also give them more money, sort of as like, doesn't straight call it bribery, but it's definitely self-incentives that are lining up in a way that you can use them collectively to keep growing it at the expense of the rest of the company.
I'll
One
call
of the
it
ways
bribery.
I'm not going to fault anyone that calls it that. One of the things he talks about, this one in particular, is that if you look at specifically in the financial industry, a lot of companies make the argument that, oh, we have to lay off a certain amount of the workforce because we had a bad sales year. Therefore, we had a bad sales year. We have to like rebalance and recoup some of the costs. So we don't have as much money for labor. So we're going to have to let people go. That would make sense, unless then they also gave bonuses to the people in the executive levels at the same time that they're letting people off, even though the company had a bad year, which is that the company can have a bad year, but don't worry, the executives still get their bonuses. Everyone else, congratulations, you go through layoffs.
Yep.
Does that argument make
right.
sense? Do you think he's making a good one here?
It's a good analysis. We haven't got into the prescription on how to fix it, but yes, I would say that that's something that people think is a bum deal. And here's the thing: is like, if you think it's a bum deal, then fucking quit. You know, like there's something to be said for the level of calibration that a person needs to stomach. Like, if I can't change the way the CEO gets paid, then it doesn't do me any good to think about it or to fucking mess with it or to whatever, say that little serenity prayer. God grab me the peace to accept the things I can't change, the courage to change the things I can, and then the wisdom to know the difference between them. So it's like, if you can't control what happens to the CEO, then fucking don't worry about it. But what you can do is you could say, oh, the CEO is getting paid and all my coworkers are getting laid off. I'm fucking out of here. Fuck this shit. If enough people are sovereign individuals and enough people do that, then it makes a difference. But if a bunch of people are like, oh man, I am scared. I got to keep this job because I got to pay for my wife and kids. And I got to make my truck payment. I got to have my Apple TV, blah, blah, blah. Like if they're a whole bunch of fucking little dirty ass slaves, then you're just going to act like a little slave. And they're just going to stay in that mindset, and they're just going to keep getting fucked while other people are getting, like taking advantage of them. So like part of me thinks like, oh yeah, it's a bad thing to do. But the other half is like, oh, well, I don't work for people like that because I have self-respect and I have the ability to shape the world around me. If you don't have that ability, if you don't have self-respect, then that's fine and that's dandy. Like I don't necessarily fault people for that, but like you can't complain if you don't build yourself and build your world up to give you the power to do the things that you need to do to get what you want out of the world. So like if you work for Walmart and you're sick of being treated like a piece of shit, but you continue to work for Walmart, then it's like, I don't know what to tell you. Perhaps you're being hypocritical. Perhaps you're just like enjoy bitching, but like there might not be opportunity. There might not be all sorts of things, but there's like a level of calibration that comes with this sort of stuff. So I don't really know. He describes the problem accurately, is what I will say, Zenith. What do you think? Let me turn your question back to you.
I agree on that one. I think that we're going to keep getting into a few more of these. I think he's very good with the diagnosis. I think he's good with understanding what the issues are. I think where we're going to, towards the second half of the show, where we're going to argue with the guy is about his prescriptions. But overall, I think his analysis of what's going on is very spot on, because what he's doing is he's just like, he's looking at real life and he's saying, what are the incentives that are causing these things? What are kind of the effects of it? And then we haven't gotten to his prescriptions yet, but I do think that's where we're going to disagree. But we're going to try to give him the best light we possibly can for this one. All right. So next up, this is a major topic that he talks about in the book, and it's the idea of rent seeking. So he argues that a lot of America's inequality comes from not giving genuine wealth creation, but from rent seeking, aka when powerful individuals or corporations use political and economic influence to extract income without producing value themselves. The origin of what he's talking about here is the idea of like literal rent. But he's not saying that you have to do something with the land, because that would be providing value. What he's arguing is that if you just have the ability to acquire scarce resources, whatever they are, in this case, land is probably the best example, and you just acquired it, you don't have to do anything with it, but you can just charge people rent to use it, then in effect, you are getting money for basically doing nothing. So what this does is it...
for people using it, that's where the value's at.
It is, but it is the people using it are generating the value. But the argument is that if you are just holding on to resources with the intention of lending them, with the intention of just charging rent for it, you are kind of just being a bit of a leech. So,
is he making an argument against usury?
I think he is actually.
Oh,
so
well. Continue, Z.
Yeah. So what he argues in this one is that through this kind of like, this is incentivizing people not to produce value, but to just scoop up and hoard resources. Is saying that the whole point is that theoretically you're trying to like do something with it, but instead you're effectively just using it as a form of gatekeeping. Because it's a scarce resource, there's a finite amount, and the earlier and more of it that you can capture, the greater odds of less people being able to acquire it, meaning that you have more control over the market. Therefore, you can really set the demand for it. So in ways that he talks about this, he argues that stuff like patent law, he really doesn't like, because what patent law does is it bars innovation and creates a form of like intellectual monopoly, which is that if you can patent something that is just like kind of like one level above like what has previously existed, and you can hold on to that patent and you can keep applying for extensions of your patent, what you're effectively doing is barring the rest of the market from using some piece of technology that you have claimed as your own exclusively. As a result of this, you're pretty much cutting off anything that would follow that, which is that this might be step like 1 or 2 of a process, but there's a lot of other stuff you could do with it. All that stuff is cut off because you now have excluded people from using that in ways that they wish to see fit because you have the patent. Additionally, he talks about guilds or professions as a way of gatekeeping people from coming into the market. What you're doing here is you're choking up the labor supply, meaning that if you can have some sort of guild or profession that has like professional certifications, I think he uses healthcare as a big one, meaning that if the board of doctors is only allowing a very limited amount of people to enter the market and become doctors each year, what that does is it kind of limits the amount of supply of a thing that is what he argues is in very high demand. As a result of that, you can charge a lot higher, and you can also kind of ensure that the people inside of the profession also keep very high salaries as a result of it.
I think that's fucked, personally.
I would agree as well. And I think he makes a good argument here, which is that he's really arguing that what's going on is that it's a manipulation of the supply. It is not a monopoly from the sense of we are the only game in, well, it is literally we are the only game in town. But it's not of like, we're the only one in this business. It's more of like saying to people, oh, yeah, no, it's a free market. You can totally come in. Like, look, there's a process to come in. But we don't let that many people in, and we pick and choose who we want as kind of like a backroom handshake agreement, which is like, yes, we're all going to keep our wages really, really high, that kind of stuff. Additionally, he argues that tariffs are also a bit of a monopoly as well, which is that if you exclude global competition, you are pretty much giving gifts to domestic producers, so that if you monopolize on the economy domestically, it means that the people inside of the economy are pretty much required to deal with the people that are inside, that are allowed in, and then the people that are inside of it just by their geography. So what this does is he's saying that if you have a high tariff for anything outside entering the market, it means that the domestic producers now have a bit of a, it's less of a monopoly, but it's still in that same vein of argument, which is that you are restricting incoming competition, allowing yourselves to kind of charge whatever you want. And what he really talks about here is it goes back to the idea of the CEOs and executives, which is that you are giving yourself the power to charge exorbitant rates much higher above the profit margin than what would be considered like normal or reasonable. Again, throws out the word reasonable, which is very subjective, but at the same time, it kind of goes back to that idea. Alrighty, let's talk about taxes.
Okay.
One of the things he talks about with taxes is that
you're
it
on
goes
a fucking
back.
roll, bro. Ask a question whenever you feel like it, man. But continue on your monologues.
I know. I want to. I'm just trying to get the arguments out there so we understand what they are. We can say these are the good points, so that way we can get to the second half, which is all right. Here's where we disagree with the guy. So, taxes. He argues if you are making money off of, again, that monopoly, which is that you are just rent seeking, your taxation for some reason through capital gains is taxed at lower than what the average person is taxed at for working. Makes sense. It's like you just have this thing, therefore you get benefits that other people don't have. All right, I can understand it. Next one is estate and death taxes. He argues that this one was actually kind of, the messaging was perverted so that people argue against estate and death taxes to their own detriment. What he's saying goes back to the idea of capital gains tax, which is that if you allow, or if you prevent estate and death taxes, it means that money just keeps getting passed on, and you could theoretically have this giant like war chest that is not used for anything except the perpetuation of accruing more capital gains tax or accruing interest on whatever it is. I think that this argument really hits home in the economic system that we have, because the US dollar is a fiat currency and we do print that thing to infinity. Therefore, if theoretically it's kind of just getting distributed to the people that are accruing interest, the people that are just going to accrue the most interest really are able to capitalize against that inflation aspect, meaning that if you have to work for your dollar, the dollar that you work for every day is worth less and less and less. Meanwhile, people that just have a giant chunk of dollars are able to just get more dollars as a result of having the dollars. So the dollars that you have are being worth less, but the amount of interest that you're getting is well exceeding the amount of interest that you're actually like feeling. Additionally, taxes and loopholes. The guy argues that we have a progressive tax system, but at the same time, the people in the upper echelons are somehow paying less effective tax rate than the people at the bottom due to what he calls loopholes. Doesn't really define it a whole lot or give a whole lot of examples, but he just says that loopholes are a way that people avoid paying taxes. I guess it makes
I agree.
sense. And this part really goes into his next argument, which he says that being able to write the rules and choosing the referees is uniquely powerful. And this goes back to the loopholes example, which is that if you are able to influence the people that write the rules, aka taxes, and you're able to choose the people that enforce these rules, aka judges or regulators, is a big one he argues, is that you are able to get these people to work with you in order to protect the wealth that you already have and ensure that it does not become more emburdened by these new regulations or taxes that are being presented.
Mm-hmm.
Does that, do you think this is a good point?
Yeah, it's a bunch of bullshit. Is his point. That's what it boils down to. It's a big fucking game, and if you're not on their team, then you ain't in it. You're either the person who is sucking the blood out of the lifeless corpse in front of you, or you are the lifeless corpse whose blood is being sucked out by some vampiric whatever the hell. So like the way that like I don't like it when people use the word loopholes. But it's like it definitely colors a very beautiful picture of what the system is. There's ways to avoid taxes, and the problem with the ways to avoid taxes is it's not loopholes. It's if you have X, Y, and Z amount of money, you can avoid taxes by employing this, that, and the other strategy. Now, what'd be great is if those opportunities were available to everyone. If I, as a middle class person, could also avoid taxes by doing X, Y, and Z strategy, it'd be perfect. But I can't, because we have this wonderful, wonderful thing called income tax that our blessed and most favorite president of all, Woodrow Wilson, enacted back in 1916, along with the Federal Reserve. God save that man. He was the best president ever. If anyone ever asks you, by the way, who's your least favorite president, if you say Donald Trump, you're a fucking loser. If you say Joe Biden, you're a fucking loser. If you say George Bush, you're a fucking loser. If you say Obama was your favorite president, you're a fucking loser. The worst president of them all was Woodrow Wilson, because he allowed the creation of the Federal Reserve and he allowed the creation of income tax. The creation of income tax, which originally only the top 3% of the country gets taxed, and they only get taxed about 2% of their wealth. And you know what we have now? We have every fucking buddy getting taxed just about it. Like, I don't know what the average is. I would say the average is somewhere between 20 to 30%, and it's everybody. It's not the top echelon. When you give them an inch, they take a mile. When you give the government power, it just keeps growing bigger and bigger and bigger. When you give the Federal Reserve power, it just keeps growing bigger and bigger and bigger. So like, these are the issues, and he describes them very well, and he's attacking the wrong problem. It's not the wealthy guys that are a problem because they're being taxed differently. It's the taxation system that's the problem. It's not the people who have a bunch of money. People who have a bunch of money, cool beans, have a bunch of money. When you take money from only a certain group of people, then that's problematic, right? If you take money from everybody, then whatever. If everybody gets just 10% sales tax whenever any sort of transaction happens, 10% off the top goes straight to the government, then that's like, it sucks, but that's a taxation system where anytime money is spent, then tax is had. But the problem is that doesn't raise enough taxes to pay for the debt that the US has, because it borrows money from the Fed and then sends it over to wherever the fuck it sends it. And we get in this big giant thingamajigger, and so there's these tax brackets that are made, and only fucking idiots and zombies pay taxes, right? Idiots, zombies, and poor people. I should clarify. If you're wealthy, then you can afford to learn how to avoid taxes, and if you're not wealthy, then congratulations, you fucking suck. You're at the bottom of the ladder. I hope you enjoy getting vampired on, just like me, and just like Zenith, and just like the rest of everybody that's listening to this podcast, which is like what brought us to cryptocurrency in the first place. Is the system that we live in right now is vampiric, and it sucks, and we're not happy with what we got. So we're trying to do something different. And a lot of people end up moving out of the United States because the United States tax law is just fucking trash. It's garbage. It is one of the only countries where when you move out of the United States and you go make money in a foreign country, you still get taxed in the US for that. Like, if I go to El Salvador and I set up a business where I sell orange juice with 3 ice cubes, then I get taxed as a United States citizen, and I have to pay the United States government and the IRS. I have to pay them money for the money that I generate with my own two hands in El Salvador or in Antarctica or wherever the hell I'm at. So homie is right when he points out that the system is flawed. He is wrong when he points at it being the rich people's fault. I think that the thing that's the problem is the system is fucked, and he appeals to a better system, which would be lovely if things worked the way they were supposed to. So maybe we set up a government that's a smart contract that everyone can see where all the money goes at all times, right? Maybe that's the solution. Maybe we have an AI government. Maybe we have an AI IRS. You know, maybe we have some sort of auto executing code where every single transaction is verified and readable on some sort of public blockchain ledger where everyone can see everything that's going on. But right now we don't have that. We have send me your money and trust me, I promise I won't send it to pedophiles who are going to go bomb Yemen, right? Like that's my thoughts. That's my monologue, Zenith. I don't remember what your question was.
You're good.
But,
you're getting to the good stuff. We'll be there in just 1 second. I got a few more points I want to blast through, and then we can turn it back on the author. All right, you mentioned one of them, Federal Reserve. The guy does have some words about the Federal Reserve, so this is a lot of probably where we overlap.
Fair, yeah.
One of the things he argues in the 2008 financial crisis is that the Federal Reserve was actually the one that justified the actions being necessary to preserve the system. The Federal Reserve were the people saying that, we have to step in, otherwise everything's just going to collapse. Doesn't like that they were the ones to do it. Says that as part of this, it doesn't make sense because they have a lack of transparency and accountability, meaning that they have a culture of secrecy and they have very close ties to the financial industry. At many points in the book, he talks about the revolving door, whether it's politics or finance, which is that people go back and forth between financial institutions, regulators that are regulating said financial institutions back to those financial institutions they just set up the rules for. Additionally, when it comes to government, it's the idea that you're a lobbyist or you're in government, that you go back to lobbying, all at the expense of whoever is paying the most dollars for it. Finish up the Federal Reserve, he argues that one of the big things they fail on is that they focus more on inflation over employment. And by doing this, what you're doing is you're ignoring the dual mandate and treating one as more important, which is employment. More people are focused on employment as opposed to the inflation issue. And he says that he argues that disproportionately, the inflation really eats into bondholders. Bondholders are people that are the upper echelons of society because they're just focused on preserving the wealth instead of investing aggressively to gain wealth. So those are the people that need to fight against inflation the most, as opposed to people who need jobs the most, which is the rest of the folks. And then finally, he talks about something near and dear to our hearts, lowering interest rates and quantitative easing, saying that ultra low interest rates and quantitative easing inflated asset prices, stocks, real estate, bonds, other collectibles, that kind of exclusive stuff, which are primarily held by the people who have money at the top. Instead of stimulating broad-based policy to help everybody, they focus on just having low interest rates and quantitative easing, which just jacks up the prices of these kind of assets. Alrighty. Finally, I'm going to breeze through healthcare real quick, but he talks about
you got really good notes. I gotta say, to break the fourth wall here, like your notes are
I appreciate it.
Fucking top quality.
Believe me, I got notes the other direction too, which is I wanted to make sure I was prepared to hit this guy back, but I want to give him the best due I possibly can first. All right, so for healthcare, we're gonna go through this one real quick. He argues that if you're at the upper echelons, you have more money to spend on healthcare, therefore it's not an issue to you. If you're at the lower ends, you have not as much money. Therefore, if you suffer, getting sick and losing your job at the same time, he says this is one of the biggest double whammies you could possibly face, and is one of the things that really is a giant fear for the people in the lower echelons. Additionally, insurance costs. He says that the insurance companies are actually a bit of a rent seekers as well, which is that they are trying to charge as much money as possible in order to give you a discount so that they can claim it as losses so that the company makes money. The result of this is that the end user, the people paying into the system, pay a lot higher, and also the people outside of the system end up paying a lot higher because the hospitals also charge the same amount because they're used to the insurance companies trying to argue those amounts and then ultimately still settling for a less but still high amount. Next up, final topic before we get into his prescriptions. College, baby. He says that this is one of the examples of predatory lending. He does make an argument, which is that yes, as a person signing a contract with a bank, you should be informed. This again is very it's a very unequal playing field, which is that A, the banks have way more information than the average person getting a college loan, probably a fresh 18, 19-year-old. And B,
That's accurate.
The way that these loans are structured is that they cannot be settled through bankruptcy, meaning you cannot have bankruptcy happen and then kind of like escape it. The argument here is that because
it's indentured servitude. All right, let's call it what it is. It's indentured servitude.
He argues that
for, yeah.
The way that he argues this,
for the folks at home who don't like, if you guys need a flashing like ding, watch out. It's slavery. It's financial slavery.
Yeah, the way that it literally becomes financial slavery is that if you cannot get out of this loan, what ends up happening is that the methods to recoup that cost for the banks is that they start just garnishing your wages, meaning that like 25% of your wages off the top are just going to go to the bank for as long as it can keep going. And the interest rates help extend that as well.
Don't make money. It means just don't make money. And then you'll be all right. Just get on the stimmies, bro.
It means that you are effectively 25% owned by that bank for as long as they have their claws on you. So that's why he makes the indentured servitude argument. He also argues that he calls it predatory lending because this is where we get blame on two parts. One goes to the lenders and two goes to the colleges. For-profit colleges have become an issue at this point where they're literally just trying to get as much money as possible while ignoring the mission of trying to educate people. Additionally, the lenders also know this as well, meaning that both the college and the lenders are signing off on loans to people who are getting loans at high costs, unnecessarily high costs, for degrees that don't do anything. As a result of this, they really don't care what happens to the end user. They just want to make as much money as possible. Therefore, you get this issue where people are getting college degrees that are too expensive, and they don't actually help you out on the backside, meaning make more money to pay off the loans. They're pretty much just saddling you with debt for the rest of your life, effectively. At the time of recording, the author states that the average student debt held by an American was $25,000. Remember, this is back in 2012.
What's 25 grand in 2012 bucks or in 2025 bucks?
Arguably, it's about like 30% less than what it would be today. So it's probably like $6,000, $6,500 more. So 31,000. The statistic I looked at the updated statistic for average college debt held by Americans today is about $50,000. So in 10 years, it basically doubled. So his point is doubly taken on this one. All right, let's get to, this is what he argues are the downsides of this inevitability. So we spent the entire book laying out, here are all the ways that the society is unequal and all the reasons for it. Here's what he's saying. Notes. All right, he's saying that one, there are economic consequences. If you have an unequal economy, you have an inefficient economy, meaning that you're actually limiting your demand and limiting your growth. At this point, you're also going to have speculative bubbles, meaning that things are going to be overinflated, they're going to bust, and then someone's going to be left holding the bag. And as a result, oftentimes the taxpayers are the one left holding the bag. Lastly, you have wasted human capital. In this kind of system where it's unequal, people are too busy worrying about other things to actually give their full output to the economy. As a result, your economy is growing slower and producing less than it possibly could.
That's fair.
Next up, we have social consequences. There's an erosion of trust. The nation as a whole requires on a fundamental level of trust in order to work together. If you have this level of inequality, it can get to levels where you actually have the erosion of trust. It breeds resentment, undermines social cohesion, and fosters the idea that the system is rigged. Additionally, health and well-being gaps. If you have this erosion of trust and you also just have these levels of inequality, human life expectancy actually takes a drop. If you have less human life expectancy, it means that your workforce is A, not going to live as long, B, not work as well, and then ultimately it's not going to be able to replace itself at levels as well. And this is also what leads to the decline in opportunity, meaning that as the mobility shrinks, less people are invested in the system, less investment in the system equals less output. Lastly, we have political consequences. First up is the idea of democratic capture. It says that wealth buys political influence and that everything is pretty much, when you have less people invested in the system that are actually voting politically, it means that there's less interest from the people at the lower levels because they're too focused on other things, meaning the people that are focused on the system are the people with the most to gain, namely the 1%. As a result, this is where you get tax codes, regulations, and appointment of people into those regulations that will ultimately benefit those people with as opposed to people elsewhere. And then finally, he argues that we have seen, even in the 2010s and 2012s, that this level can actually get to the point where it erodes societies to the point that revolution happens. And ultimately, there will become political violence, coups, overthrows, straight up collapses of governments, currencies, whatever it is. If it gets bad enough, it will literally collapse a system. Not that the system doesn't make money, but the people that are inside of the system collapse it from within. Alrighty, here are where we get to the arguments about what he wants to do. There's one, focus on campaign finance reform. What's the name of the court case? Citizens United. He argues that Citizens United was one of the ways that allows corporations to have exorbitant influence in political systems. As a result of this, it leads to inequality in political influence, meaning that the people that are able to help fund these campaigns, and then once those people get elected, they also are there to pretty much serve the people that got them elected. Number two is corporate governance. Fix corporate governance structures so that CEOs are not able to just take the exorbitant pay packages that they get, and they have some sort of limitation on them so that they can't just do whatever they want and then pay people to back them up effectively. Number three is education reform. Inequality in education is limiting the opportunity. This comes back to the colleges need to stop being for-profit college models that ignore the mission statement of actually educating people, and instead of just giving people a piece of paper that ultimately does nothing for them except them give them a debt burden for the rest of their lives. Next up is healthcare reform. He goes at two factors here. Number one is the insurers and the healthcare industry itself. Is that he's saying that A, it's overcalculated, so we're overvaluing it. B, it's overvalued because they're overcharging for it. And then finally, the other point is that if people are worrying about the healthcare as much because it costs so much, it leads to inefficient labor forces effectively. So you got to fix that either by ensuring that the prices don't get too high, people aren't charging too much, or the incentives aren't there to charge as much as possible. Next up, we have labor protections. He actually argues for unions and collective bargaining rights, saying that just due to the nature of how employment works, the workers automatically are kind of at a lower foot. So this goes to exactly what you were saying, which is that you can either try to do it yourself, which might be inefficient, or you can try to use unions. He makes the argument that unions are good when they do this, but unions are bad when they're just gatekeeping and monopolizing. We covered that with the guilds and the professional certifications. And lastly, he talks about global reforms. This one's a little harder, but it's kind of the idea that you got to have some sort of international. Yeah, pretty much. You got to have international agreements with other people. Otherwise, you're just going to have flight to tax havens that are going to exploit your laws. You either can allow that and then create additional regulations and taxes to ensure that you're not just having things that are directly influencing your system escape the taxation and reach.
Go
for it.
Flight to tax havens. If you're a girl and your boyfriend is beating you, and so you run off to your dad's house, and your dad's like, "Nah, I gotta take you back to your boyfriend's house. We got this flight haven agreement where you run away from this one place. Nah, I gotta take you back." It's like, hang on a second, what? People who are getting overtaxed fly away from the overtaxation. They go to the places where they're treated well, and then all of a sudden the place that treats them well is like, "No, dude, you're going back to where you came from." That's what it sounds like to me. This is the beat girlfriend theorem, which is like, I don't buy into that for 1 second. So like, I understand the position that he's coming from, but if people are fleeing bad thing, then that's a sign. That's something to consider. So it's my little analogy. I'm sorry for cutting you off there, Z.
Oh, you're good. That's the end of it. So that is the entirety of his argument in the best light we can possibly prevent. I think you have a very good point there to start off with the idea of that. Yes, people are going to go where they're taxed less.
Yeah.
The author makes the argument that taxation is the great equalizer, meaning that it is the thing that will help society. But guess what?
Who controls the taxes? It's not the great equalizer. It's the great extractor. It's like, hey, I've got the violence of the state and the police and the military, so I'm going to say, you give me money or I break your fingers and send you to jail. It's not the equalizer at all. In a perfect world, it would be a great equalizer. The great equalizer is Samuel Colt, right? That is the great equalizer. When you're able to inflict upon other people what they're able to inflict upon you, that's the equalization. Taxation is not equalization. Taxation is theft. Taxation is, you have created, I'm going to take without producing. So give me money, Plox. That's like anyway, that's the first hole that I will poke in his argument right there. What do you think? What do you think, Z?
I have a fundamentally different view on taxation from the author here. The author is arguing that taxation is supposed to be used to help everyone in society. I have the view that taxation is supposed to run the government and perform its minimum basic functions required. What he's arguing here is not that taxation is used to fund a system that is supposed to provide a purpose, that is supposed to execute a specific function. He's arguing that taxation is a way of social control over the entire populace. That is something I fundamentally disagree with. He does make the argument that if you tax too much, you will reduce the incentive to work. But additionally, I get back to that and I say, yes, I agree. But at the same time, what you ultimately end up that is that you argue for this highly progressive level of taxation. The author argues that it's a good thing back in the day that we used to tax like the top percentage at 70%. Again, with progressive taxes, it's saying that like the amount of money you make from like $0 to $20,000 is not taxed. From 20,000 to like 150 or something is taxed at like, or 20 to like 80 is taxed at 20%. And the amount that you make at 80 to like 250 is taxed at like 30. And then anything above 250 is taxed at another level. And then anything over like $1 million is taxed at like 70%. Like, I understand what you're getting to there, but you're fundamentally ignoring like issues of justice. Not saying that it's not fair because people have more than me, but more of the issue of justice from the argument of like, it is immoral to take stuff from people. It is
you don't steal. We don't do that.
It's just like, this is where you get to that taxation is theft argument. At a certain level, you have agreed to the social contract that you live in society, therefore you will be paying for society to a degree. It is not a social contract that just because I'm doing well means you are going to take more of my stuff because you think that it's going to help other people be more equal to me.
It's fair. It's fair that I take more of your stuff because you're really good.
Yeah. This leads me to one of the more egregious things that I think he argues, which is that he argues that people should be wanting more death and estate taxes because he says that that will allow them a more equal position to achieve higher levels. He doesn't state the other half of this, which is that the higher levels are lower because you're punishing the higher levels more. Estate and death taxes really punish people that have done well in their lives to provide for their children so that their children will not have to suffer and go through the same amount of physical strenuousness that they had in their lives. It is actively preventing the passage of wealth from one person to another. Or that kind of thing is, I think it fundamentally goes against what kind of like the idea is, which is like, you have a family, you help make their lives better than yours. If you are constantly resetting every time, you're just churning people through the same washer machine of life. It, in my opinion, focuses very narrowly on this idea that life will always stay the same exactly as it is today, and everyone that comes after me has to deal with the same shit that I dealt with. It's like, okay,
my perspective's the only way that can work. I've got my horse blinders on.
Yeah, no, I'm not here for that. The way that he also argues, real quick, the way he argues this is he says, these fools, they're being tricked into saying that wealth and death taxes are bad for them. It's like, okay, why are they bad for you? It's bad because other people are actually doing better and they're not having to suffer like you are. We all should suffer. It's like, what?
It's not fair. It's a bunch of bullshit, man. Here's what wealth and death taxes do is they don't allow the free transaction from one entity to another. That's what it is, right? I want to harken this back to the four things that I harp on all the time for what makes for a sovereign individual. Speak, spend, move, defend. Those are your four things that make you sovereign. If you can't talk, if you can't transact, if you can't roam around without like getting stopped by the Gestapo, papers please, and if you can't defend yourself, then you're not a sovereign individual. If you can't spend your money the way that you want to, what is spending money? Trading value from one person to another. If I say, hey, Zenith, here's $5 bills. Thank you for being on stream with me tonight. And the government says, whoa, 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 whoa. Will, as you were dying there and with your dying breath, you gave $5 to Zenith. We get $4 of that. And Zenith gets $1, right? that's hampering my ability to transact freely with Zenith for, providing me an excellent service of being a good friend throughout the duration of my life and helping me stream and do cool things. Like it's an anchor being thrown off the side of the will ship of traveling forwards and doing what will ship wants to do, holding us back and taking away sovereignty. So like his whole idea of this death tax and this inheritance tax, I get it. He's done some kindergarten level math and taken some thought as like, well, if we take this stuff from other people, then they won't be incentivized to, create more bad people. It's a very blinders on kind of moment. It's like, this is the only way that things possibly could be. So I better defend against this one thing happening by implementing this very restrictive procedure that empowers the government, which we know to be benevolent and trustworthy and always acting in everyone's self-interest, not their own. It's just a big fucking kerfuffle. And I gotta say, he's a lot older than I am, and he does have some Nobel's Peace Prizes, so he's probably sucked off some pretty cool people within his day. But this is just an asinine theory, and in my own professional and humble Will Stevenson of the DGen Roundtable opinion, right? I think that it's pretty fucking elementary. What do you think, Z?
I like to believe the guy has been around, so he's probably had a few good ideas. I want to say,
I'm sure his heart's in the right place.
Exactly. I think what it fundamentally comes down to, which is where we directly disagree with this man, is kind of like worldview and then role of the government. That's what I get to. Real quick, I do want to hit this. So, new to God Plankty says the chat is wild, guys, at the $10 super chat. Good sir.
Oh, what's going on in the chat?
You didn't need to do that, but we greatly appreciate it. And by the way, I want to kick it back to a comment that you had. Him and Moondog are blowing it up in there. You had a really
I
good
can't see the chats right now on my phone. Fuck, I wish I had my laptop out. What's going on in the chats?
He says, tax loopholes are areas in the economy where the government wants to incentivize you to invest. It's literally an IQ test. RH talks about this. It's Money 101. Yes, sir. Somebody has read Richard Hart Sci-Vive. Well done, sir.
There we go.
Well done.
Good shit.
All right. I do want to take a minute to give this man his flowers a little bit. I think his diagnoses of the 2008 financial crash is fantastic. I think it works well. I think his diagnoses of the college degree thing, that makes sense. A, the colleges are charging too much and giving worthless degrees, and B, the banks are just doing it because people are willing to sign. Granted, I do believe that you have the ability to make contracts if you freely wish, even to your detriment. It's not saying that everyone has the duty to protect each other's brothers, but the overall idea of yes, the education is crap. I would argue there are other factors into it that have really come up in the last 10 years, but I think he's good on that. Corporate governance, I think, is one where I slightly disagree with him a bit, which is that it kind of goes back to his idea of you didn't earn it, therefore you don't deserve it. He talks about this multiple times in the book. I think that, yes, that is possible, but overall, there is a large degree of people, especially running companies, that have worked their entire lives to take the risk of running this thing. They've also tied up their well-being in the stock price of it. Can you do things to manipulate the stock price? Absolutely. We have done things like that on DGen Roundtable to show you it is so easy and so possible. At the same time, though, I think this greatly overlooks the fact that, people have take large risks and should be rewarded when they go well. Do those sometimes result in where you get Elon Musk with that giant $1 billion pay package? Yeah, guess what? The man earned it. He worked his ass off, did something no one else has done before, and deserves to be paid as much. And just because you don't like it, think you can take it away from him. No, that kind of stuff doesn't make sense.
Elon's also paid the most taxes out of anyone in the history of the world ever.
Agreed.
When he sold some stock or took a loan against some stock, he did something like that, some gigantic financial transaction. He's like, yeah, I'll pay the tax on it, no big deal, whatever. I'll just go make more money, and then he footed the largest tax bill ever. Everyone forgets about that fun little fact. That was a good little campfire story there.
Yeah, look, I think the author makes really good points. The revolving door thing also makes sense. Does it seem like a very perverse incentive to have finance people go become regulators of finance and then go back to financial institutions? Yeah, that can definitely create some perverse incentives. I think you can do things to prevent it, but at the end of the day, you have to understand that who are the people you want regulating? You want people that are experienced and arguably experts in their field. Where are you going to find them? At the top of their field. So when their time is up in these regulation institutions, it makes sense they're going to go back. Can you try to put some provisions in place? Yeah, for sure. You definitely can. But at the same time, you got to understand that like there's a reality to the way that things work, which is that if you want the best and brightest to be doing these things, they A, have to be rewarded so they get to the top of their industries. And B, if you want them, you also have to acquire them somehow. And then C, if you want to acquire them, you have to make sure that they're able to still make money once they're done with the job. If you've spent your entire life in an industry, what are the odds you're going to change industries? And because the job you just took at the regulator means you can't go work for them ever.
Bless you. Yeah, I heard Gary Gensler's actually changed his professions. He's a bricklayer now. He's no longer in finance. He's no longer in crypto. He's out there fucking stacking brick fences in suburbs and doing that.
Back to
stuff,
teaching.
right?
GG's back to teaching. The thing he was doing right before he got picked up by the SEC.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. I gotta say, I don't like the way that the author ended the book. It felt, do you remember how he ended the book? He was saying that these are the downsides if we let this inequality go. The man wrote it like a threat. He wrote it like, if you don't do this, they're gonna come for you. If you don't do this, if you don't let us take more of your shit, oh no, the society's gonna
what a shitty way to like. You're supposed to give people like a compliment sandwich. If you got something bad to tell them and you want them to do something, you have to give them a compliment sandwich. You have to make them feel good, give them the prescription, and then make them feel good again. That's how you make a difference. You don't make them feel good, give them a prescription, and then kick them in the nuts. That's not how you fucking change the world. So like I wasn't fond of it personally.
No, like overall, I think it's a pretty decent book. And I can read it and recognize that he and I have identified a lot of the same issues. We've just arrived at different conclusions.
I think if you take the book and you chop out like 30% of it, which is his opinions on how to fix it, and like some of the other analysis,
topics,
like it's great. I think it's great if you use this book as like a, hey, I need to find out what's wrong with my car, right? And so like I open the hood and it's like, oh, look at that. The radiator hose is disconnected. It's low on oil. The tires are flat. It's like bada bing, bada boom, end the book right there, you know? And instead he says, hey, what you really need to do is you need to hire a monkey, right? And this monkey needs to like break your windows and then tow your truck over to Detroit and then have it thrown in the local sewage pond, right? Like it's like, well, hang on a minute. That part of the book we can leave out. Let's go back to the part where you talk about how my windshield's broken, how my radiator hose is pulled out, how the tires are flat, how it's out of oil. Like, let's go back to all that. Let's focus on the things that are good. Let's focus on the things that are objectively true, right? And let's leave out all the rest. I agree with you, Zenith. It is a good book. I would even say it's a great book if you remove all the incorrect analysis as to how to fix the problem. If you just look at this book from like a let's identify problems perspective, then I'd give it an A+. I'd give it a fucking 2 thumbs up. And Roger Ebert, they would probably do the same.
Yeah, if you listen to this book and you took out the parts that you mentioned, this would sound a lot like Degen Roundtable streams, which is we're just like, man, why is the Federal Reserve inflating all these asset prices? Why does college suck? What is going on with the banks getting bailed out? Like, look, we're on the same page there, but we are fundamentally opposed in different areas. There are a few parts that I pulled from the book that when I read them, I was like, all right, I want to understand the argument, but I heard it and I was just like, what the fuck did you just say?
Yeah.
One of them, the guy is like, wealthy people fear the government because they're worried about the government coming and taking their stuff to redistribute it. No shit.
Yeah, of course. It's like, duh. Hey, you've got a lot of stuff. I'm going to take your stuff. That's just like you don't take your fucking Lotus Lace and drive it through a fucking 8 Mile, you know? It's like, you're not going to take your fancy awesome things and go to a place where people take fancy awesome things away. Like, duh. This guy, again, he's great at observing. He's bad at fixing. So like I would hire this guy to troubleshoot all day long, but I would not hire this guy to fix the problem. He's great at identifying. He's great at describing. He's great at pointing out things that he sees. And so like in that realm, I think we can applaud him. And I think that we can say you did a pretty damn good job here, broski. And a lot of people feel the exact same way as he does. But don't tell me how to fix it, because you're all dicked up in that realm.
That's true.
So,
by the way,
me personally,
new to God, Plankton brother, we appreciate the super chats.
Fuck yeah, dude.
The book talks a lot about systems and elites causing inequality, but nothing about personal responsibility or ambition. It's one-sided as fuck.
Yep. And like, listen, you can't change elites. You can't change the government, but you know what you can change? You can change yourself, right? So, like, start from the realm that you can fix. If I try and fix the United States of America, I'm not going to be able to do it. But what I can do is I can get in shape. I can get my money right. I can learn how to talk to people. I can solve problems at my own level. And then from there, I can build my own power levels up. So I think that this book, it kind of skips past that part. My 2 cents.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. New to God Plankton.
Thank you, good sir. I got 2 more things for you, and then we'll do our final thoughts on it.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another one. This one seems just like an infallible statement. The guy says, how can anyone, this is in the vein of kind of the idea of like, oh, those rich people, they didn't earn it. Believing that you earned it, you're just a fool, you're lying to yourself. He says, how can any one person today justify their contributions due to the inherent advantage that was given to them by the people of the past who achieved everything before them? It's like saying, it's saying that you can't achieve anything because you're ignoring all the privilege that you have from the people that built society before you.
Okay, well, take away this guy's air conditioning and take away his car because he didn't invent it himself.
Again, this kind of goes. Yeah, this was one of those statements that really like got me thinking about like, it's the idea that they just want everyone to have the same experience in the washing machine of life, going through the same spin cycle. It's kind of an idea that like they call a lot of the ideas they call progressive, but they don't ever want to make progress. They just want people to have the same struggles.
It was statements like this that made me call him a whiny little bitch that just like it's just like complaining throughout the book.
Yeah, agreed.
Can you take the chat? There we go. Oh, we got another one. Oh my God.
All right, there we go. We
Good
got 2.
for you, Mr. New God.
Here's my final thing is this level of thinking really goes back to the analogy that he made in the beginning of the book. This kind of thinking believes that wealth or the economy is a one-sized pie, and that the pie is only there for the taking, and people are player versus player trying to take as much pie from each other. I think it ignores the fact that the pie is continuously growing and ever evolving. Technology, times change. We made more GDP this year than last year. Therefore, there's new pie. Sure, people that have a lot of pie are still getting more benefits from it, but at the same time, a lot of the rest of the pie is growing. He even talks in the beginning, he said, like, here are arguments that the right makes against my thesis. He says that they say that the standard of living is much higher than the rest of the world, so poverty isn't a good metric. And the author says that just because you have cheap technology or goods doesn't make up for the lack of sanitation in cities and the larger problems when it comes to day-to-day living. Look, you're not wrong, but at the same time, you're also ignoring the other argument there, which is that life in 2025 is just from like the base level of technology available, the services that you have is so much better than like 20, 30, 50 years ago. Amazon Prime is the thing. You can get anything delivered to you in 2 days with a marketplace full of people trying to undercut each other by 2 cents just to get on the shown first on the list. The amount of niceties that you have is incredible. The technology that we have is incredible and cheaper than ever. To ignore all of that, I think, is to ignore the progress that we have made. And again, it comes back to the idea of what is poverty? Is poverty just like you're just calling it 20% and below? Or are you saying that there are certain things that human beings need to live? Yes, I understand that food prices have gone up. Oh yeah, we feel it. Gas prices have gone up. Definitely. Vehicle prices have gone up due to the stupid rules that they implemented through the EPA. Yes, I understand it. But I think the diagnosis here is the issue. Your fundamental worldview that there's a limited amount of pie and we're all fighting for it, it ignores that the pie grows. And additionally, your prescription that the government is the way to fix this by taxation and taking from people is A, expanding the government to degrees that I think you have not thought about, or B, you like that idea and you want more control over things, which you kind of clearly illustrate in the book here. You gotta understand, you gotta leave people alone.
when we say you, we are talking about Joseph Stiglitz, not
Joseph
you guys
Stiglitz.
at home. We love you all very much. Y'all are awesome.
Correct. Yeah. So there you go. The pie analogy is one that we constantly hear. It's the idea that there's only so much to go around and the elites are just taking more of it.
Yep.
Sure, I guess, but there's a lot more to it than that. But I will say, to finish it off here, I think I'm pleasantly surprised that there was more of this book that I agreed with than I initially thought I was going to.
I will agree with that. Yep.
I was expecting this man to have a full-blown rebuke of Adam Smith and free market economics and all that stuff.
Yep.
And to a degree, there was a chapter there where he's talking about like racial discrimination and stuff. And I'm like, sir, your argument falls flat on its face because you're like, oh, like discriminated groups get paid less. It's like, okay, if they got paid less, wouldn't you hire all of them? And he's like, yes, but they also don't get hired because they just give it to the white people. It's like, oh, you just defeated yourself.
I love that women are paid less than men because I could just hire a workforce of all women and save 30%. It's fantastic.
Yeah. But no, look at it this way. Good sir, Dr. Joseph Stiglitz, if you ever want to come on the show and talk with us about the Federal Reserve and how they're screwing up the fiat dollar, good sir, you're in good company. We are right here with you.
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm sure that Joseph Stiglitz is going to concern his time with qualifying to the DGen Roundtable in our
I'll shoot him an email.
Tens of viewers. Yeah. I'll tag him on Instagram. And put up a clip of the show of us talking about how great he is and stuff. But Z, I gotta bounce, bro. I gotta go get ready for the effing hangout and stuff. Final thoughts on the book?
Good sir, if you had to put this book anywhere between 0 and 10,000 hours of where you'd put it in your reading, where would you put it?
I would put it at somewhere around 100,000 hours. That's where I think people should read this book.
Say 100,000 hours?
Yeah, 100,000 hours. I think, and not a moment before. You really need about 100,000 hours of experience in this world in order to really gain all of the experience necessary from this book. That's my thoughts. What about you?
Tell you what, I'll put it at 5,000. I think it's the upper echelon, which is that you've learned all the basics. Now it's time to understand the opposite side of that argument and utilize all the knowledge you've gained up until this point to make your own arguments against it. By the way, we have a bidding war going on in the chat.
Oh my goodness.
Plankton is saying we're $20. Good sir. We appreciate it, but like you don't have to. We'll get you.
No, you do have to. Keep going higher, baby.
Oh
look, are you guys just gonna sit here and let New to God Plankton be the only one putting up boatloads of money for me and Zenith to go and buy strippers, candy, and cocaine later? Come on now, everybody. Let's pump those numbers up. These are rookie numbers. Just kidding. New to God, thank you, bro. You're a fucking scholar and a gentleman, and we fucking love you, dude. What did he say though, Z?
Says we're all responsible, less than the $15 landscaper that didn't question how he got approved for a $500,000 house. Didn't ask, how the fuck? Am I only crazy? I didn't see the opportunity sooner, but see the Richard Hart opportunity. Yes, sir.
There you go.
We do love that pulse chain and hex around these parts, baby. In fact, one of us loves it so much they tattooed it on their arm.
Hey, yep, there we go. We got the Quattro Cinco right here, ladies and germs. It was Moondog in there? Oh, Moondog's got a fucking
got a 1555. Got part of the Quattro Cinco in there. I love it. He says,
my goodness.
Scarcity is contextual. Technology is a resource liberating mechanism. Humans compound knowledge cumulatively. Me in a talk, your hands can solve bigger problems than you think on YouTube 8 years ago.
You guys should watch that talk. Moondog, if you would be so kind, I know you've posted that several times before. If you would be so kind as to post it again in the DGen Roundtable community chat, I would very much appreciate that, bro. Because it's a really good talk, and your guys' hands can solve bigger problems than you think. So, like, look at Moondog's. Look at Moondog. I can't remember what the scenario was. I believe that you were talking to a whole bunch of real estate professionals and young people of that sort. But yeah, shout out to Moondog and his fantastic talk.
Appreciate you greatly, sir.
Yep.
And we also appreciate Mixed, aka Jocelyn with the $1 super sticker. Yes, sir. I can't see it. Let me see if I can see it. Oh, it's a poop emoji. Thank you.
Oh, okay. There we go. We got nothing but shit over here, broski. Y'all are the best. Y'all are the best motherfucking chats that we've got this side of the Mississippi. So freaking love each, or this side of the Nile, this side of the Yangtze River. So fucking shout out to all of you guys that are doing all these fucking super chats. Y'all are fucking crazy. And like, I love each and every one of you. This is awesome.
Absolutely.
What a great show. What a
By the
great
way, we
fucking
got
show.
one more that slid in here that I don't want to forget. Mr. Moonpilled Rational Optics. He says, "Nobody panic. I made it."
Moonpilled has
sir.
made it. Where's my wine bottle? That is a water bottle. I can't find my wine bottle. There it is. I found my wine bottle. Josh Shorts, mead bottle. I will cheers to you, good sir, before we turn in for the night and I go get ready to do the FN hangout. So, is that it for the chat shoutouts, Mr. Zenith? Have we covered? Man, I'm so sad that I'm on my phone only right now that I can't see all these fantastic chats.
I know Mix gave us the laughing, crying cat emoji and a bunch of different colored thumbs ups.
There we go.
Moondog
Excellent.
also says, "Will do. It was a room of a bunch of very left humanitarian secularists trying to appeal to their rationalism, to believe in humanity, abundance, and maybe a little friendly meritocracy."
Well, I'll be damned. There we go. Excellent. Good to see you, Moondog. Good to see everybody. Z, go ahead.
Folks, we are streaming Sunday, Wednesday, and Fridays every week here on the DGen Roundtable. We appreciate you guys showing up a lot. Next up, we got Sunday, our major flagship news show, where we're going to be talking about government shutdown equals market pump. All that and more on Sunday. Back on Wednesday, we're looking at trying to do a Warhammer 40K Whiskey Wednesday, assuming that I could show up this time, but I'm not going to get held in the training. I will say it was a very cool training, but at the same time, I like you guys a lot. And then next Friday, Mr. Will Stevenson, what book are we covering?
We're covering the 48 Laws of Power for next book club, and we're going to do it a little bit differently than we do most book clubs. Because there's 48 laws, 48 times 2 is 96. So there's going to be 96 minutes of us going every 2 minutes. We're going to switch to a new law of power, and it's going to be interesting. It's going to be like one of the weirdest book club formats that we've ever done. So 48 Laws of Power is the next book that we're covering for book club. Make sure that you guys start reading it now because it's a long one. I want to say it's 19 or 20 hours or something like that. So 48 Laws of Power, it's chock-a-block full of stories and anecdotes. I'm sure that there's condensed versions of it that you can read where you just go over the 48 Laws of Power. But I think it's going to be an interesting one. We're going to do book club in a little bit different format than we normally do. So I'm excited to try it. It's going to be a good time. And for those of you at home who don't know where to find me, you can catch all of my socials at will.pls.fyi. That is everything. And if you want to go meet other Hexkins, go to bit.ly/hex_meetup. That's all I got. Zenith, take it away. Where can the folks find you, and what have you got going on in the near future?
Folks, you can find me on zenithdi on X and Instagram. Outside of that, you can catch me in the DGen Roundtable Telegram, this one, where you can find all of us in there. Hit us up with good memes, comments, questions, market analysis, and hop on for the occasional stream that we do in there as well. Outside of that, gosh, that's pretty much it. I will get with you about book club. I think I might be busy on Friday, but we might be able to do it on a different night because I don't want to keep delaying these.
Okay.
Who's the author of 48 Laws of Power? I'll do
Robert
a quick
Greene.
search. There you go, Robert Greene. Boom. Yeah. Outside of that, I think that about covers it. All streams, 8 p.m. Eastern time, Sunday, Wednesday, Friday, unless we do something weird. But outside of that, folks, thank you so much for joining us tonight. You have been watching the DGen Roundtable, and around here, we like to say at the end of the stream, we want to thank you each and every time you spend your time here with us, because we know that time is your most valuable asset. So thank you so much for spending it here with us. Outside of that, Mr. Producer, go ahead and get that trigger finger ready, which is me, by the way, because it's now time to remind all the folks at home to DGen responsibly.